right, good morning, Westwinds. Let's sing this song, this familiar song together, all right? God, I'm on my knees again. God, I'm begging, please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. I'm walking on the desert road, water for my thirsty soul. I need you. Oh, I need you. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears, like holy water on my skin. Dead man walking, slave to sin. I wanna know about being born again. I need you. Oh God, I need you. So take me to the riverside. Take me under baptized. I need you. Oh God, I need you. Oh, your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. Your forgiveness, it's like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips, like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin. It's like holy water on my skin. It's like holy water.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good morning. Welcome everybody to Westwinds. We're happy you're here in the room. You can take a seat for a second if you'd like. We're happy you're here in the room with us, and if you're viewing online, we're happy you're all going to experience what today has to bring with us, because you might have noticed it kind of as you walked in, the room looks a little different, feels a little different than usual, feels a little closer, a little more intimate. And there's a pretty specific reason for that. We actually have a special opportunity today to hear a story from a couple of our very own Rick and Kelly Wrangler. They're people who have been part of our Westwinds community. Rick plays up here pretty much every week. It's more than I do, honestly, for the past few years. But it's really it's going to be a special morning because we're going to hear about their story, what that means, what their challenges, their ways they've overcome with the help of God and with Jesus. And so the reason that's special, and the reason that this is something that we really want to take the opportunity to do today, is because God's story doesn't just exist within a book. And now that's part of God's story. It's a very big piece of it. But God's story plays out in our lives every day. in the world around us, in our own community here in Jackson, here in Westwinds. And we want to make sure we acknowledge that, God is moving today just like he was then, when this Bible was written. And so any story needs some context, right? So a story will have a setting, it'll have characters, and obviously one of those characters in their story, as you're going to hear later, is Jesus. And so the next few songs we're going to sing together are about Jesus. And that'll give us a nice little kind of starting pad to work from as we work our way through this morning together. All right? Sound good? Awesome. All right, let's keep singing.
Is in the name of Jesus. Every heart and tongue confess your name above all names. All things of this earth belong to you forever. You will reign. Every heart and tongue confess your name above all names. All things of this earth belong to you forever. You will reign. Jesus. Every heart and tongue confess your name above all names. All things of this earth belong to you forever. You will reign. Highly exalted is the name of Jesus Christ. Heaven and earth declare all praise to Jesus Christ. At the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess Him, King of glory now. It's the Father's pleasure
All right, this moment's not over. Let's all take a deep breath in. All right, that feels good. Just let it out. That's good. We're going to take another opportunity to do something we probably haven't done in a little bit here, but we're going to read from Scripture today. It's going to be from Psalm 116, and this is a prayer that's filled with a bit of confession, a bit of praise, and a bit of praise. It's very real, it's very human. Part of it, written by David, that's very human. Sacred Scripture. You can come and purchase it together. So I'm going to read the sections that say leader, and you read the sections that say congregation. Let's do this. Ready to go? Let's do this. I saw the Lord because he hears my voice and my plea because he inclines his ear to me.
Therefore, I will call upon his name as long as I live.
I can't read that. I'm so the ideas of death and the terrors. I'm going to scroll it this way. I'm so sorry.
Distress and I called upon them. Watches over this. I was brought low, and he said, return to your rest.
church didn't have the scriptures. The earliest church, what they had were the stories of Jesus. And as the stories of Jesus spread and spread and spread, people were finding themselves believing in the way of Jesus and following in the way of Jesus because their faith grew because of people's stories. And so we're going to practice that today in just a few minutes. Before we do that, I wanted to take this opportunity actually to share a little bit about church finances. And I know, like, if you are new here, we don't do this every week. But one of my goals as your pastor is for our church finances to be significantly more transparent. What that means is if you have questions about what Westwinds does with our shared money, you can ask them. And I wanted to make that as an announcement today to make sure that you know that we're not hiding anything. If you would like to know and understand how money works around here, you can ask, and I would be happy to have those conversations with you. And so every so often what we're going to start doing is just including a little blip on the handout and in our weekly email about how the church is doing financially, because I think there are people who would like to know that. That gets broken down in a few different ways, and one of the ways that you'll see in your handout today is that we have an annual budget of $650,000, which means our goal is that our weekly giving would be $12,500. If you do the math, it's divided by 52 weeks. You follow that, right? And so what we've published here is what we're starting to see as an average giving, and so that's a really important number. The average giving each week is really important for us to follow along with. And then the other side of the piece is understanding how we're tracking year to date. And so we put that information in there. And so we're a little bit behind year to date right now. We're about $10,000 behind year to date. But we have a system in place that we don't spend money we don't have. And so that doesn't mean that anyone's going to have to get laid off or fired. We've done a really good job with our elders and our staff, making sure that we're living inside of what we're giving. So our budget is what we set at the start of the year as a goal for our community. And then our year to date is what we're doing in real time. Does that make sense? Okay, and so as we're following along with those, and you start seeing those numbers show up more in communications, I wanted to make sure that you understood what you're looking at. Sounds good? Okay, so if you're new here, you just got to sit in on a financial conversation with the family, and now you're going to hear another, what I think is a family conversation. Rick and Kelly, would you mind joining me up here? Can we welcome Rick and Kelly? Well, I'm so glad that y'all are up for this. When I got here, I was actually just here interviewing, and people, the staff and the elders had set up a few conversations with different members of our community, and they said, "You've got to meet with Rick. He's serves every weekend. He's on the stage every weekend. He plays guitar. He's just willing to do whatever is needed." And so I met with Rick and had a really amazing conversation. Then I got to hear a little bit of your story then. And then I got to know Kelly. And I've just seen the faith in your family and your marriage, the things that God has done in you and through you and around you is nothing short of a miracle. And so today, and many of you are here today because you made sure you're going to be here today because you know parts of this story. And some of you are like, I just came here today and I don't even know anything. And so you're going to get to hear a story today of what I think is a real life miracle. And so why don't we start? Would you guys just maybe share your just like who you are and maybe like what you do in life? What are your favorite things to do in life? What are those? Ready, set, Rick, you go first.
All right. My name is Rick, and I'm also an elder here at the church. That's recent, but I've played on the music team and gone to church here for 16 years, 17 years, something like that. And then in my other life, which is less significant, I'm a creative, and Kelly and I have a small boutique creative agency where we do packaging.
Kelly, how about you?
Yeah, that's great. Good morning. I'm Kelly. Thanks for coming here to love on our church and hear our story. I started attending Westwinds the fall of 2004, I was a single divorced mom, and I had 3 children. Our daughter was she had just turned 5. Our sons were, well, they're 5 and 6 years older, so 10, 11. And I had found Jesus. I grew up knowing that I believed in God, but God was something I feared because people make mistakes, and that was ugly, and sin is ugly, and it's heavy, and it's hard, but through my story, which you'll hear, I found the love of Jesus, and that had changed the trajectory of my life and my family's life, and it gave me a new heart of hope, and that's what I cling to today, because my life is still messy, and that's okay, because I have Jesus. Rick talked about his other life. He doesn't have another life. It's one life. We know that, right? This is my first time speaking about my story in a large group, so forgive me if I lose myself or don't say something that I just don't want anybody to feel that I'm unapproachable, because I live my life openly, and I'm here if you have a question, or if you need help, or if you need help beyond just this Sunday afternoon. So, yeah, thanks for having us, Cory.
Thank you.
That was not scripted.
It's all good.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no script today. I brought this notebook up so I'd look important, but it's actually empty. There's nothing in it. So I'm just going to set this here so we look like we're... Like, even as I got to sit with Rick and Kelly multiple times just kind of talking about their story.
He's awesome.
And
Seven years, Rick will say a long time ago, but
Yeah, well, it was.
yeah, 37. It'll be 38 years this fall that we met in high school.
and somewhere along the way, you got married. When did that fall into the timeline?
We were first married in 1991. Yep.
A small Baptist church in Clinton
Yep.
that we did not attend.
Nope. We needed a preacher.
You got married, and there was some kids there, and you want to share a little bit about that first season of life?
Yeah, we were married young, and we were pregnant within the first year of our marriage, and we had a son. He was a stillborn. So at 38 weeks of pregnancy, I went to a doctor's appointment, and there was no heartbeat. And that seems like that happened to another person. To be so young and just starting our life together, and to have such a heavy loss, and I still didn't know the love of Jesus. I just wanted to run from all the heartache and pain, and you can't do that. You have to deal.
Yeah, and I lost my mom when I was 8 years old, and grew up in a house that didn't know Jesus, didn't go to church, and so we dealt with loss very differently, and it was very unhealthy. So dragging that along with me, then we lose a child, which just sort of compounded the anguish and the anger towards God, which I believed there was a God, but I couldn't understand why he was doing this to us.
And eventually that first stint in marriage ended in divorce. Rick, do you want to maybe talk about kind of where things started to deteriorate, and what that looked like for you, and tell that part of your story?
Yeah, I think, losing my mom so young wasn't helpful. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and was surrounded by them, relatives and so forth, and started drinking when I was 10.
what would you say is like so you ended up leaving the home, and you guys split up, and then you hit a pretty kind of low point after all of that. Where did it go from there once you exited the home?
So I got to be alone with my addiction, which is what my addiction wanted, and for 5 years I fed that, and I reached my low point where I disappeared for a few days, and my dad ended up finding me, taking me to Brighton to rehab, and it was really it was a big moment for me because they take your shoelaces and your belt, much like jail, which we've all been there, right? So I'm sitting in this room with no shoelaces and no belt, and I realized, like, I had worked my whole life to get here. In other words, none of that amounted to anything. And I just remember noticing that there was a Bible and an AA book on this end table in this room, and it just struck me. And after being there for a while and leaving, I still walked out into the same, I guess for lack of a better word, the same shitty life I just walked out of. But I felt different, and later I recognized that as hope. And at that moment, I had given up the battle that I had fought. My whole life had just been a scrap with the world, and I was angry at the world. And in that moment, I lost a lot of that anger and a lot of that fight. And in the background of my addiction, Kelly used to irritate me periodically by saying, "We pray for you at church," which just drove me crazy. People would be praying for me without my permission. But somehow that's my right. I don't know. But through all of that, what ended up happening was her doing that in the background. When I decided that I wanted to get sober, I also wanted to get some Jesus. And I started coming here. I mean, within a very short time of getting sober, I started attending Westwinds.
And so we all know that you're now married again and together again. Kelly, you want to tell us a little bit about how that happened? I mean, from your perspective, you're a single parent, your kid's dad is who knows where, and then somewhere along the lines, something happens.
Yeah, so while Rick was feeding his addiction, I found recovery, and I found the recovery community of Al-Anon. Along with Jesus, he put me there. I learned that hate, anger, and all of the garbage that comes with sin was not going to help me or my children, our children. So having those tools, and Rick being upset about me praying for him and so forth, he started to visit us on the weekends and come to church with us. So we started to build a rapport. I think within a year of his first year of sobriety, he came back to live with us, and just building a life around hope and faith, and raising our 3 children. We didn't remarry right away. It was baby steps, but it was kind of like that didn't really matter, because what we were doing was building a new life together in hope and coming to church and our kids and the student journey and the youth. And we were remarried in 2016, and here at Westwinds in our pastor's office, Pastor Dave, some of you remember, who we love dearly, and he just blessed us continually through recovery, and seeing Rick here and on stage, and that was when we were remarried.
And and if this is where the story ended, I think we could walk away feeling like, wow, God's done an amazing thing in your life. But life had more coming at you. Rick, would you mind sharing the story of from there on and what happened to Corbin and how that kind of began to play into your life?
Sure.
I know it's a tough part of the story to share.
Yeah, it's
but
tough.
Yeah.
It's our youngest son went to Michigan State and graduated, had a degree in computer science, moved to Chicago, had a great job, and he was, while living in Chicago, was killed in a tragic accident. And I don't know where you want me to go with that other than, that happened, and if ever there was a test of faith, that was it.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'd love to kind of hear, and I think what is powerful is like as a, we know your story to this point, but you're also a parent in this moment, and the way that kind of played out in your life, and the role that your faith played in that season. If you don't mind.
Yeah. So what's interesting about it is, in all of that, faith was not top of mind for me. That's not what was. We lost a child, and our world just blew up, and our future just got altered, and a big piece of our hopes and dreams disappeared. And and our church rallied around us, and I can still remember within a couple days of losing him, the large groups of people from the church coming to pray with us. And I still remember that moment, but what was interesting about it is through that whole season, I felt extremely vulnerable, and I really found that only two places I felt safe, and one of them was home, and the other one was here at Westwinds. And the biggest reason was because people knew us and knew our story, and I didn't feel like I had to retell it, but yet they knew what we were going through. And I think within 2 weeks I was back up on stage playing, and it became a form of healing. So when I say that I worship through playing, that's the truth. And people started to tell us two years into our grief, what an inspiration we have been and how we leaned into our faith. And I never once felt like that's what I was doing. Like, I wouldn't have described it that way, but I think in hindsight, that's exactly what we did. But it felt different. I didn't feel like I was leaning into faith. I felt like I was going where I was safe, and I was trying to keep my mind occupied. And this just happened to be a place that, because of what we had invested in the church and in the relationships, let me say this differently. Jesus couldn't reach me through me, because that portal was not open. It was, all I could think about was what we had lost. But Jesus reached us through the people that came to visit us. And I think that's really important, and it's helped me understand the power of what Jesus does and what it means to be faithful and what it means to preach the gospel. All of those people that came and spoke into our lives and loved on us were doing Jesus' work and setting the example that he set.
I want to cut you off, so hold that thought.
Oh, all right.
I feel like you've got something just bubbling out of you here
coming.
that's going to be
It's
good.
coming.
But get ready. I'm going to say some stuff, and then you're just going to forget what I said and remember what Kelly's about to say. But I'm really compelled, Rick, as you tell your story, because I think sometimes hard seasons, it's like we're holding on to faith, like we're gripping it, like we're hanging on to it. But then often in hindsight, it feels like faith held on to us, right? And I think that's how faith works. And I think especially in a community of faith, that like last week we talked about, like, sometimes we practice because we believe, and sometimes we practice to help us believe. And that's the beauty of doing this together. It's a powerful, powerful picture of that. Kelly, would you mind? I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe what the grieving process was like for you. I know it's ongoing, but how has that played out in your life? Because I think, there are some of us in the room that might be grieving right now. Some of us in the room that maybe have been resisting grief of something in our life. Or maybe there's some of us in the room that have friends who are grieving right now. And I think hearing a bit of that story could be really helpful for us to embody what this might mean for us in our life.
So for me, in the tragic loss of our son Corbin, I'm the mom and I want everybody to be okay and I want to hold it all together. Excuse me. And my mom raised me to either find a helper or be a helper. So I have always wanted to make people feel comfortable or share, what helps me. And at that moment in my life, nothing was helping me. I was numb. I was just forgetting to breathe most of the time. And I remember the faces, and I remember a lot of the comfort was just, I couldn't really remember what they were saying, but I could feel their presence and I know they cared. And that was how people were making me feel. You don't always remember what people say, but you remember how they made you feel. And the community in our families, and I did hair for over 30 years before my son passed away. And so I've been blessed in my life to meet wonderful people in all walks of life, and friends that just continue to show up and hug on us and love on us. That was Jesus through them, and he was supplying exactly what we needed. And some of them didn't even know it, because if some people are hurt by church, and Jesus put people right where they were supposed to be. And the weeks after, it's been 5 years, 3 months, and 20 days since I lost my son. And I didn't know if I could even live a week without him. And God just continued to provide a way. And I'm forever grateful for that. It's still been a journey since we lost our son. Our hard days are not over, but the comfort we find in community, and Cory talks a lot about community, it's true, it works, it helps, and you may not think that your presence matters, but it does, it matters. And just showing up made the difference in my grief, and it still does today.
I mean, I hear your story, and I know, pastors are supposed to have more faith in this, but man, I feel like if I walk through what you walk through, I'd just be pissed, and I wouldn't let people get close to me. I feel like it wouldn't be worth the risk, but I've bore witness, and so many people here bore witness to the way that you continue to lean into relationships, the way you continue to serve and love. I don't know what question to ask except why? Why continue to take your life, and rather than shutting down, you both are finding ways to give, and it's not like you're done grieving, right? Like, there's still grief. Yet in the midst of grief, you're serving and being incredibly generous with your life. Why?
I think, going through something like that, I mean, everybody goes through tragedy and grief. It's different for everyone, but losing our son and having, you pin your hopes and dreams on your children, and when you lose a child, that path is black. It's done. And so, part of what we wanted to do was continue the legacy of who Corbin was, and how he looked at life was so different than the way I looked at life. He loved people, and he was the person in a room full of people that would seek out those who were disconnected and disenfranchised and bring them in. And I was never that person. But you start to look at your goals, look at the things you're spending your time doing, and I realized that my career in the corporate world just wasn't aligning with where I needed to go with my life, and I quit. And I remember sitting on my couch and just going, what the fuck did I just do? But I also remember praying to God, I need you at the center of whatever I do, and I'm gonna wait for you to tell me. But while I'm waiting, I'm gonna go ahead and start connecting with people, and I still feel like God was like, this guy is hilarious. That's exactly what I want him to do. But I found in that very first connection, reaching out to the Lean Rocket Lab, I went in to talk to them about, starting our agency and taking up residence there at the Lean Rocket. And it was 5 minutes of talking about business and 55 minutes of talking about Jesus. So he showed up right away, and I just found that, and we continue to find it, it's amazing, that Jesus, people talk about this personal relationship with Jesus, and there is, right? You have that, it's your prayers, it's that, but I think that Jesus is in the community, and that really has been, it's been so big in my recovery, and also coming through this grief, that we just have both realized that's really all we have is community, and what we leave behind, how we treat people and how we leave them is all we have. And so, I, speaking personally, flipped my ideals on its head, and it's relationship first. Then everything else sort of falls in line behind that, and Jesus is in all of that.
You, Kelly, you now are involved in helping other people in their recovery, which likely means you're reliving this story over and over again. Why bother?
Because one of the first calls I made was to a friend in recovery, an Al-Anon friend. She introduced me to the program in 2002, and my son passed in 2018. I didn't always keep that connection, but it was there, and it was always there for me. So through that, it just has impacted, it was impactful. And then to share my story and how it would help others, it's a beautiful community. I have some friends here today that share that recovery with me, and I love you, and I am so thankful you're here. It's okay to tell your story, and if you feel like you need a safe place or a safe person, Jesus usually leads you to that if you pray for it. And a full prayer can be just Jesus, and he hears you. He hears that. He knows you. He knows your heart. And the messiness of it all, there's that centering, and I lean into that every day. I say I thank God every day for my life, and I do. The hard parts are not easy to be thankful for, but God provides a way, and we can find hope in the ashes, in the death of sin, the death of loved ones. We can find hope in Jesus. I don't know how else to put it. I just know how it feels, and I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, one of the things that I've loved about getting to know you is just I think that God has given you this incredibly tender heart and spirit. You just exude inclusivity. You just exude welcome. Every time I'm in your presence, I feel like I'm the best person in the world, and you just exude that. But I think there's an other side of that where there's. So I think kind of my last question in all this is, what do you say to the tender-hearted person in the room, who who knows what it is to feel grief or to feel hurt. And I assume the other side of that coin is, the dark side of that is to withhold, because you feel pain so deeply. What do you say to the tender-hearted person in the room as they hear your story? What do you want them to know about you? What do you want them to hear in all of this that might be restorative or welcoming to them?
God sees every tear. He sees the sorrow and he sees the happiness. But he sees every tear. And there's healing in those tears. It's a scientific proven fact. I don't know why, but it is. And I believe everything that our lives are is an offering of hope and love. Whatever our life may be and wherever you're at in your life, it matters. You matter. And your story is really important. And I feel that in my bones, the very core of who I am. I've had a lot of beautiful people love on me, and I'm going to continue to do that. Some people, they don't want that love, and that's okay. They need your prayers. They need your presence. It's okay.
Thank you. And Rick, as I get to know you, I feel like you're the opposite end. That you like to know why things are the way they are. You've got a bit of maybe a skeptical bend, maybe a contrarian at times. And your proximity in the, there's the old saying, some people got to learn the hard way. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's a bit of been your journey. What do you say to the person that might be here today or listening online that is standing at a distance from all of this because they're skeptical or they're afraid or they don't want to trust? What do you say to that person that is maybe where you were years back and you were angry that people were praying for you? What do you say to that person?
That was the addiction talking. But no, I think, being skeptical, I think another characteristic that goes with that is like a curiosity. And I explored faith through books and through, different means like that, which is one way to try and answer some of the academic questions. And when I started coming to Westwinds and started, investing in the church and being up on stage, things started to happen to me. And that overrides a lot of that skepticism. I still have it, and I still study, and, if you haven't watched The Chosen, you really should. It's such a fantastic series, but it starts to answer some of those weird questions. And I know that faith is exactly that. I know what it means. But through studying and reading, and I have every Bible you could imagine, the Geographic Bible, the Linear Bible, all of them, trying to put the pieces together to build that bridge so that my leap of faith isn't quite as large, right? All I could say to someone who's skeptical is invest yourself in it and see what happens. And it's really hard to convince somebody to take that path, but I will say that when I quit my job and came home and told God I wanted him at the center of what I was doing, the way he has shown up in my life and the things he's done, I would not believe them if somebody told me that it happened that way for them. But it is incredible. I was at a conference on Thursday last week and went and met these guys out of Sturgis, 5 Lakes Coffee. It's not a commercial, but the guy looked at me, we were just talking, and he said, "What's that cross mean on your necklace?" And I said, "Well, I've had a number throughout my life. I keep losing them." I said, "Well, I'm a Christian." He goes, "I am too." He goes, "We're both reborn." And we ended up standing there for 20 minutes just sharing our story. And it's amazing how you connect with people that are on that wavelength and how beautiful that is. And, in the midst of that entire conference where we really didn't know more than 5 people, I made fast friends with them. Like, we see the world through the same eyes. Neither one of us are perfect, but all of a sudden we aligned. And So yeah, to the skeptic, I'd say get in there and get your hands dirty. And
Well, thank you both for doing this. I know it's been a long journey to be sitting in this spot right now, but we all are so grateful for what God has done in your life, and that we get to experience faith in Jesus with you, and share in this with you, this story of incredible resurrection, that Jesus is working resurrection in your life over and over and over again, that this is not just a story in a book, as Aaron shared earlier today from years ago, but it's something we're walking through today. So thank you. Can we thank Rick and Kelly? Yeah. I'm going to invite the band to come up for a minute. Yeah, you can stand. That's great. We're gonna sing one more song together before we go. But the reason we wanted to make the room like this today is if you want to sit for a little bit after the gathering today, we want to make sure there was space for that. Rick and Kelly have bravely said they will stick around if anyone has questions or would like to be prayed for. And then Pastor Phil and Amy will also be in this space. If you'd like to process anything today, we'll be making room for that. Next week, we're going to have a baptism, and if centering Jesus in your life has been something you've been thinking about or processing, maybe you've already made that decision in your head and your heart, but you haven't taken that public step of faith, man, we'd love to baptize you into not just this family, but into the family of God that is global, that runs generations, thousands of years deep worldwide. And so as cumbersome as it is, there's a QR code in the back of the chair. And if you click on that, there's a button for that. If that is weird to you, come find anybody who looks like they know what's going on, and we'll connect you in the right places. All right, let's sing together. And then when the band is done, let's exit in this posture and maybe hold our conversations until we get to the lobby. So if folks want to stay in this room and process, they can. Sound good? Let's stand and sing.
Hallelujah, you will never let me down. Hallelujah, you will never let me down. Your hope runs through my veins. Your love, it makes a way. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Let's sing that again together. You will never let me down. Hallelujah. You will never let me down. Your hope runs through my veins. Your love, it paves the way. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Against all hope, I will believe.
been a good day. Kind of leave as you feel led to, but feel free to stick around too. We'll be around here.